Hey y'all, welcome back. It's me, Dr. Edwards, and I wanted to put together a little video about your Milestone 3 to help give you insights and better understanding of the critical elements. All right. So to start with, always check out the final project rubric, right? Because it gives you an idea of what these specific pieces, these specific milestones, are trying to address. All right. Then pull up the specific rubric for that milestone. I hope I'm making sense. The words that they use to identify these things. Oof. Anyway, um, yeah. So it's really addressing section 4 and section 5 of the final project. And this that I have up here is the specific milestone for milestone 3, the specific rubric for milestone 3, excuse me. And you'll see we have kind of two main sections. We have the cultural group section, and then we have the folklore and mythology section. I would really suggest actually using the kind of structure outlined in the rubric here. So, have section 4, cultural groups, and then, use these critical elements like specific characteristics and identity throughout history to help highlight those sections where you're addressing these elements. Yeah, it helps. When I have to kind of try to sort through and filter through everything and try to find different points that are out of position and stuff. Yeah, it just helps me as the reviewer help you in the long run. Anyway, on to the specific critical elements here. You'll see that here we have identify the main cultural groups in your country and highlight specific characteristics of their cultural identities. All right, so say you picked. Let me give you an example. You picked the states. Okay, I'll use this since you can't use that for your final project. There are lots of different cultural groups here in the states. You can think about the indigenous peoples, 500 plus nations that used to, uh, uh, be found here before European colonization. And so I might identify that we have Irish Americans and German Americans and Cuban Americans and yada 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 yada, right? Pick, I don't know, two, three. You might identify several. That's what I'd recommend. Then you're gonna want to pick a couple, two, three, and focus in on their specific cultural identities. Now, the key thing here is you need to support those characteristics, those cultural identities. You need to support them with evidence, okay? And this is a great opportunity to make use of Shapiro Library. They actually have an anthropological database that you can go in and you can look up information about various groups. From all over. Yeah. So I hope that makes sense. You're just identifying different groups that are in your country. So using my U.S. example, you have all the different Native American groups that are indigenous to the U.S., well, what is now the U.S., and you have all these other groups that have colonized the U.S., right? So, that should help you think about your specific country, right? There's really clear differences when you have indigenous peoples versus those that have migrated or immigrated in from other areas. Key, cite support. All right, find good scholarly support as evidence for these characteristics that you're going to describe. Next up, we have trace the identity of one specific cultural group throughout history. Okay, and if you can see here that you're going to want it to specify key internal and external events that altered the identity of the group. Okay, so using my example of the U.S., Native Americans in the U.S. They were profoundly impacted by, an external example would be European colonization. Right, all these different groups that came and manifest destiny. After the states were established their independence from Great Britain. All these different groups have unique identities that have shifted through time. So I'm going to use the example of the Lakota Sioux. Um, they adopted the horse, which was introduced by Europeans, Spaniards, when they came to the New World. Brought horses with them. They got loose. All of a sudden, we have horses all over the New World. And this is one group that took serious advantage of them. They became horse people. But before they were horse people, they were something else. They were actually displaced from their previous, traditional lands and forced westward. So there's some examples of external forces that occurred through history, and you can look up specific, details on them, when those things occurred, yada yada. Now, you also want to consider internal shifts. So, for my Lakota example, there were internal responses to these external events. Okay, political ideologies of the Lakota changed, right? Because the Lakota and the federal government got in a major war, and they were being hunted down and exterminated, pretty much, forced onto reservations. Think about how the group lived prior to reservations, then after reservations. That should kind of give you some ideas of what I'm looking for here. So it's supposed to be focused in on your specific group for the milestone. Moving on, this is on to section 5, the final project rubric, and that's all about folklore and mythology. And looking up here, explain how the folklore and mythology of one specific group you selected compares to the folklore and mythology of other cultural groups in the country. So this is really just a comparative analysis. So you're going to have your focus group, and you're going to compare some myth of them to another group in your country of choice. All right. I don't know. I might look at using the Lakota and the U.S. as an example. If Lakota is my focus group, they have specific myths about creation myths about where they came from. They have stories about key values. They cite the coyote as a trickster figure, and that I can't go into details right now, but yeah, that should help you understand. Look for like the specifics, a specific myth of your group, and then compare it to another group in your country. So I'm going to compare, say, the myth of was it the wise spider, and say the American dream. Okay, the myth of the wise spider is all about understanding and respecting others and knowledge. The American dream is all about what would be about how would you say it? Well, it reflects a hegemonic discourse of you need to do X, Y, and Z to achieve A, B, and C, sort of thing. Like, the dream of the 4-bedroom house, white picket fence, 2-car garage, was it 2.5 kids, a dog, that sort of thing. We have this idea that you're supposed to achieve a particular way of being. And just as the American dream outlines a way of being, right, kind of myth is charter, okay, so does the wise spider myth from the Lakota, all right? So I'm comparing and contrasting there. Then you want to, this is on to the next element, you want to analyze the impact of the folklore and mythology on the modern cultural identity of your particular group. Okay, so yeah, with my Lakota example, there was a lot of oral history that was lost through the ethnocide, genocide that took place, but some of it was recorded in many. Actually, this isn't unique to the Lakota. Many Native American nations have kind of gone back to these early records that were actually recorded by Westerners, right? And they're applying what they read, right? What was recorded of themselves long ago. So you could actually use those sorts of things to outline how um, the impact of folklore on mythology on their current cultural identity. They may interpret the myth differently than it once was. Okay, but it still has meaning and value to them. It helps direct how they are to be. Okay. So yeah, and of course, last up here, always got to proof your writing, right? APA in text and full APA reference. Check for typos, grammar, punctuation. Yeah, all the normal things. Okay, and yeah. That should help you out. It's supposed to be 2 to 3 pages. I'd expect it'd be difficult to get it in 2 pages. Frankly, given we're looking for like specifics and details. Um, so yeah, maybe more on the 3 page. And of course, if you're having any trouble with any of these critical elements, right, or need help understanding how and where to go do some good research on your group or your country, give me a call, text me, email me. I can try to help point you in some helpful directions, right? Or like using Shapiro Library and the Anthropological Database. Okay, check it out. It's good stuff. So that's where I'm going to leave this. And yeah, I'll see y'all on the discussion boards. Hope y'all are having a good one. Take care.